I think maybe now it is time to get started. So, welcome everybody. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Hildy Dworkin, and I am president of SLA. We really are excited about having this joint town hall and welcome all ASIS members, as well as some of our ASIS leaders, as you can see. So I am not the star of this particular town hall today. We will have Lydia, the executive director from ASIS, be your guide, and we will talk, ask any questions. One thing I do want to say is, please, we will not respond to anonymous questions. It's very difficult, especially if we don't get to a question and we want to contact you afterwards to answer that question. So please respect that. And I hope you have, a very thoughtful and hopefully enjoyable town hall. Lydia?
Thank you so much, Hildy. Welcome, everybody. I'm not sure I want to be called the star of this show either, but I will be one of the co-hosts happily. I'm going to share my screen here. As Hildy said, I'm the executive director of the Association for Information Science and Technology, ASIST. I have been in this role for a little over 8 years and intend to stay in this role for at least 5 more. So I am in here for the long haul. And we're really excited about this potential partnership with SLA. So I want to I'm going to be very quick because I want to leave as much time as we can for Q&A, but I'm going to share quickly the presentation that I gave during the town hall in Pittsburgh, just for those of you that were unable to be there, to give you a little bit of a sense of who and what ASIST is and what we're thinking about going forward. So hopefully most of you have already downloaded and reviewed the merger framework that was shared about 3 weeks ago with both memberships. If you have not done so, it's linked off of both of our websites, but also you can find it through this QR code. This document outlines our best thinking 3 weeks ago of what a merger would look like. Since the meeting in Pittsburgh, we have developed some further thinking, and we can talk to that a bit today. As we've been going along and gotten feedback from people, we've sort of matured some of our ideas. So things that are in the framework, if you have questions about it, please ask. We may have modified our approach slightly on that, and I'll try to talk to that a little bit. This infographic is just sort of a snapshot of what you'll find in the framework in terms of what we're hoping to see through this relationship and the benefits that will accrue to SLA members by being part of ASIS and to ASIS members by having SLA members become a part of ASIS. Just to clarify, in case there are any questions about the final structure of all of this, and the legalese of this is beyond me, and I don't want to pretend to be a lawyer. However, what will ultimately end up happening through all of this is SLA will dissolve and become a part of ASIS. So ASIS will be the remaining, the standing entity. I can't remember exactly what the legal word is for it, but the name of the organization for the short term will continue to be ASIS. Built into the framework is the possibility that we might hire a branding consultant down the road to think about a different possible branding or name for the association, but that's really quite far down the road. We want to get the two organizations together and really figure out who we are for a while before we try and brand ourselves, because we don't really know who we're going to be until we get to that point. So for those of you who are not very familiar with ASIS, we are a very global organization. SLA likewise is global, and interestingly, SLA has representation in some places we do not. For example, we do not currently have any members, as you can see, in Saudi Arabia, but I know that there's a strong member contingent in Saudi Arabia. So we're really excited about the possibility of growing the global reach of ASIS, which is already significant, but growing it even further by having SLA members join ASIS as well. In terms of the types of members, the category of memberships, as you can see, the largest chunk of our members are at the professional level. Those are people who are postgraduate, at least 2 years postgraduate. Many of them are employed in the academic space, faculty in institutions that teach information science. However, we also have practicing librarians, practicing information scientists in corporations and elsewhere. We have a very strong contingent of student members. The majority of the folks that are in that category are PhD students, but we also have about 20% of that is master's and bachelor's degree students as well. We have some institutional members. Those are the corporate patrons and institutional affiliates. They get memberships for all of their master's and bachelor's students, as well as some of their faculty through their institutional membership in ASIS. Early career are folks that are within 2 years of graduating. We have a small number of retired members. That number is small mostly because by the time folks are retired, they're quite often eligible for lifetime membership. Lifetime membership is for anyone that's been a member of ASIS for more than 30 years, and that becomes a free membership for the rest of their lives. A question that came up a lot in Pittsburgh and has come up since is, wait, I've been a member of SLA for 30 years. How would that translate? Well, as SLA members move into ASIS, we will recognize your tenure in SLA just as if it were tenure in ASIS. So if you're a retired member of SLA, our requirement is that you have 5 years ASIS membership. So 5 years of SLA membership would be the equivalent for a retired member. If you have 30 years of SLA membership, you would automatically qualify for a lifetime membership in ASIS. So those things will translate directly. If you have a 3-year membership in SLA, you'll have your expiration date that is currently with SLA would be your expiration date with ASIS. So that will all transition over in the event of the merger as you become ASIS members. Here's how we're distributed regionally. You saw that map in terms of where we're located, but in terms of our concentration in various places. As you can see, we are just about 50% in the US. Right now, I think it's about 52%, and then the rest distributed elsewhere with a large chunk in South Asia. I should mention that we give 2 years of free membership to anybody in the lowest tier of World Bank economy countries. There's a list of that on our website. So if you want to check and see if you're in a country that might qualify for that, where you are. But those members get 2 years of free membership, and then they transition into a very low, about an 85% discount off of regular member dues status. So currently we have about 1,600-ish dues paying members out of a total of 2,200 members. So about 600 of them are not paying dues, either because they have their membership through their institution as a student, or they qualify for that tier 2 membership category. For folks on the call from ASIS, I want to say that SLA is currently about 1,250 members. Does that sound right? I know that number kept updating while we were even at the meeting, but I think it's about 1,250. So that's the relative comparison in terms of paying members, 1,600 at ASIS, 1,200 in SLA. So not a huge difference there. Okay, so that's really all I wanted to say about ASIS. If you haven't already, the Q&A platform is still open on both ASIS website, and then that feedback is going back to both the ASIS website and the SLA website. So if you want to provide written questions or feedback, you can do that through here, but obviously you're going to have a chance to ask any questions that you might want that we have time for here on this presentation as well. So I'm just going to try and answer a couple of questions that came up in Pittsburgh that I imagine many of you might be thinking about. One of them is the meeting, the SLA meeting, the ASIS meeting. These are quite different meetings, very different audiences right now. Having attended the SLA meeting, I'm reasonably familiar now with who is the type of folks that are attending that and the content that's provided there. It's a very different, very practical, very hands-on, here's how to apply things in practical situations, kind of a educational experience at SLA versus a very academic, theoretical research approach, largely in the ASIS meeting. So we don't see it being easy to merge those two meetings together early on. And frankly, there are financial and other practical reasons to keep two separate meetings. So for the immediate future, and by that I mean at least 2 to 3 years, we intend to keep those meetings separate. That's not to say that folks from SLA that are coming into ASIS wouldn't want to attend our ASIS annual meeting. And we have created special discount codes for anybody that might want to attend the meeting this coming November in Crystal City, Virginia. And I'm quite confident that some of our ASIS members will want to attend what has, traditionally been the SLA conference. Will continue to be that conference in the late spring, early summer in the United States. We just don't know exactly what it's going to be called yet, or where it's going to be, or what the dates are. But we will figure that all out once we know for sure that we're moving forward with a merger. So those were the two sort of really big questions that kept coming up. What will my membership status be? Oh, one more. Let me touch on that. Communities. So communities are obviously tremendously important in the SLA culture. I hadn't really appreciated how important they were until I came to that meeting, and everybody that introduced themselves said, "Hi, my name is X. I am with this community." I mean, it was really, that was their identity as they introduced themselves, and I was so impressed by that level of engagement. We want to make sure that that transitions over. And so we will do whatever we need to make sure it transitions over. What that could look like, in the case of chapters, we already have a chapter structure that covers the entire world, with the exception of Latin and South America, which we don't have enough critical mass yet to build that up. Hopefully we will have that soon. But every other region has a regional chapter in it under which we can put local chapters. So your geographic communities are quite easy to deal with. The interest group, the sort of specialty discipline ones, are a little more complicated. Some of them have natural places that we think they'll fit into ASIS. Others will want to start their own special interest groups. And so we have the capacity to add in new groups. What we'll do is meet one-on-one with the leadership of those groups and figure out what they want to do, how they want to move forward, and make that happen. There are really no barriers to doing that. So I'm confident that we will be able to find a home for any community that wants to continue to flourish under the ASIS structure. So that, I'm going to stop there and let others speak and allow time for questions.
Heather, do we have any questions?
We sure do.
Start. Ian, do you want to say anything? Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, just very briefly, I mean, we welcome these conversations. We realize it's a big decision for SLA and its members. But what I'd like to say, I think, all of us from the ASIS perspective really welcome the very constructive and engaging discussions already had with the SL leadership. And we hope that whatever comes out of this will be a benefit to both communities. And everybody we've spoken to in ASIS is very keen on this and really sees from the creative opportunities for both memberships to create a joint organization. So we really, please ask your questions. We want this to be useful to both sides if the merger goes ahead. And we don't have all the answers, and sometimes we don't know all the questions. So please ask them, please do.
Would you like me to go ahead and answer the questions that we have?
Heather will monitor it for you.
Yeah, I'm going to read them out loud, and then we'll figure out the best person to answer. So the first one is, have they determined how to deal with us who are members of both organizations? Will memberships be extended?
Would you like me to tackle that? Sure. So we don't, and there's another question in here about, do we know how many people are members of both organizations? We do not. I have not yet gotten access to the SLA member database. Hopefully that's going to happen in the next few days. And so once I have that, I'll be able to do a comparison of who's in ASIS, who's in SLA. I don't think there are that many people that have current active memberships in both. But yes, whatever the balance of your membership in SLA is at the time that the merger takes place, we can credit to your ASIS membership.
Julie, I think you did a kind of quick and dirty analysis and came up with a number.
Yeah, the number that I found doing some analysis on LinkedIn were around 70 people at one point were members of one or the other or both, not necessarily both current members.
Do free memberships in ASIS that you're counting, do they have full member privileges?
Yes, they do.
That's a short answer.
Yeah, they do. They do have, yep. All members have the same benefits.
Is SLA, the association, still currently a member of IFLA? Was looking into attending IFLA this year. I think that's a Monica or Martine question.
I would certainly have to look at that unless you know, Martine.
I do not know. I apologize. We'll have to look into it.
And I can say that ASIS isn't currently a member of IFLA, but it's a matter of submitting the form to get us to be a member of IFLA. And so we could have a conversation about how we could, bring people in under our membership if that is important. Just reach out to me directly.
SLA's academic and ed community has held a free monthly webinar for 10 years. It is now co-sponsored by ACRL's EBSS Education Committee. May we continue it in ASIS&T?
Absolutely. We wanted to chat about how that happens, just in terms of making sure we capture that content, capture the registrations and so forth. But I'm sure we could make that work. Yes.
Do we have a current timeline for the vote?
We do. It's laid out in the framework document. The intent is that if there are a few things that are up in the air at the moment, but if we can resolve the things that are up in the air, we would open the vote on the 19th of July and close it on the 18th of August.
I want to add to that. The comment period on the framework is open till July 2nd. And so Lydia briefly shared that QR code. It's on both websites, both association websites. And the intervening time will be taking into consideration all the comments that we receive, comments and questions we receive, and hopefully we'll be able to put together a document by the 19th of July. What are the local chapters that exist already in, for example, Europe? I hope I got the commas correctly.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of local chapters really at the moment. Most chapters are operating regionally, so bringing in the more localized SLA groups will be a huge benefit to ASIS members. Right now, Europe operates as a region. There's a student chapter in Europe and a Europe chapter, but no specific regional chapters. So we are, that territory is wide open for development. I think the only local chapter that we have that's really active right now is Taiwan.
What is the management structure of ASIS? Because I noticed the Minnesota address houses several associations.
So similar but different to SLA. ASIS is, I am the executive director of ASIS. I work for ASIS. My contract is with ASIS. I'm paid by ASIS. I then employ an association management company to provide the staffing that supports me. So we have 5 staff under me that are association management company employed. So we use that address because it's a free address. And so that is where our mail goes to. But really important to note, I think that I work just for ASIS. So my beginning and ending loyalties are entirely to the association, and I take my direction just from the board of directors.
Did I see someone in ASIS that is at UTK School of Info Sciences? Nice. That's where I graduated. So it's helpful to know that ASIS is well supported there.
Thank you. Go Vols. That's what I say.
How was it decided, parentheses, though I know this is still in process, end parens, that ASIS would be the name and the name Special Libraries Association SLA would go away? So far, that's the only thing about this plan that makes me sad. So I'll jump in if nobody else wants to.
Okay.
A future name is TBD. If you'll look at the framework, we're talking about doing a rebranding and possible renaming effort in 2026 or 2027. So that's something that's on the table, but we need to get the people part done first. So we're going to be focusing on that. Next question. I love how SLA discontinued the extra fees for communities so we could join multiple communities at no extra cost. Does ASIS work the same way to allow for joining multiple chapters / special interest groups?
Yes. There's no additional fee for multiple.
Ann Barker has put the link for the framework document in Q&A. Thank you. Next, can you tell us about what ASIS membership is hoping to get from better engagement with practitioners? Are they looking for connection points with the kinds of research they do? How much interest / receptivity is there among the membership? How do you gauge this?
I'll start with this.
Yeah.
Maybe others from ASIS like to continue. I think it's multiple points of contact. I think we really see this as a dialogue between researchers and practitioners. So as Lydia said, a lot of ASIS membership are in academic institutions, not entirely. Some are in practice already. And we do have a large student membership, PhD students and master students, and some bachelor students as well. And I think ASIS is the voice of research and knowledge exchange and impact. And part of that impact journey is actually working with practitioners to see how academic knowledge can be translated into non-academic environments, but also to get a better understanding of the kind of problems that really exist outside of academia, so that we're not just creating knowledge and trying to transfer it, but our activities themselves are informed by what's happening in practice. And I think there's lots of points of contact from the annual meetings, through the journals that we both have, through specialist meetings, but also through our training. And in particular, one of the things I think we're really keen on, we've had discussions about before, is how do we help open up the world of practice to our student members? We can offer them training in academic careers, but not in practice careers. And so I think there's lots of points of contact, but I think it is a dialogue. It's not just one person influencing another or one group influencing another. And I think part of the conversation as we go forward will be ways to engage through chapters, through the interest groups, through the meetings and publications.
If you don't mind me jumping in, also there'll be a lot of opportunities for both members to work on either working groups or committees. I just got a list of committees from Lydia to see who would be from SLA to join those committees. So likely there might be a call out for volunteers. I just have to read through everything before I can tell you what it is. So that I think that some of that will also help shape what the benefits are in all of that, just by people working together. And I'm sure we could continue town halls as needed. Thanks.
Can I add something real quick to this too? Just something I wanted to mention is at our last ASIS meeting, we had a few literal practical hands-on sessions that turned out to be wildly popular. And that is something I also think that SLA can help us develop, as well as the networking that SLA has. There's not an organization that has done the networking with professionals as well. And I say this as somebody from Simmons University, where the SLA chapter has always been really strong and had really good connections with the professional community. And I know myself as an ASIS member, I am very much looking forward to being able to tap into that more and to be able to engage my students with that more.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I just wanted to add to, I think my ASIS colleagues have covered everything, but I just want to say to our SLA friends, ASIS actually had a large practitioner members. Some of us who have been members for over 25 years. Remember, we had members on the board. We had even presidents who are practitioners. So this is not new for ASIS. I want to emphasize what Ian said. in terms of publications, I know people look at JSIS, they say that, oh, it's too theoretical, but there is opportunities, I think, for SLA. I don't want to speak for Lydia and the current board, but there is an opportunity to create a practitioner-focused journal and publication through this. So I see lots of really opportunities for SLA members to not only disseminate content through different publications and different forums, but ASIS members could really gain from inside. We say research and practice inform each other. This is a great example of how to do that. So.
I just want to add to that. SLA does have 2 peer-reviewed journals that will be, coming with us, and we have very editors that want to, remain that way and keep it going and work with ASIS to see how we can develop all of that.
Okay, we have 27 open questions and 32 minutes left. What are the benefits to ASIS members beside potential interaction with practitioners, which is already very much possible without ASIS absorbing SLA?
I think we pretty much just answered that. Is there anything else anyone wants to add to what?
And just one line. I think Diane's completely right that it is possible, but I think we hear continual calls that it's not happening. And I think the merger will create many more opportunities. Not least, as Hildy said, people working together on committees and in chapters on new ventures, I think will encourage conversations that are not happening.
How would the new board be elected? Will there be a quota for each?
So there is an election currently open for the ASIS board. Keeping in mind the merger has not happened yet, so we proceed with business as usual until it does. So the new board for the 25-26 year for ASIS, which runs November to October, will be elected in the next 2 weeks. And that will, it'll be the board that it is. However, as Hildy just mentioned, I've already reached out to her and asked her for names for committees going forward. That includes our governance committee and our nominating committee. So those 2 bodies are really responsible for developing the board slate going forward. So in 12 months, when we go through this process again, there will be an SLA origin voice at the table of both of those committees, and driving the discussion around who, not so much what, but who should be on the board. I'll mention that we currently have 1 practicing librarian on our board of directors. We very intentionally went after that person, and we designated a slot for a practitioner on the board because that was how important it was to get somebody on the board as a practitioner 2 years ago before we ever started having this conversation. So this is already very important to us to make sure that we have a better balance on our board of academics and practitioners. So I don't see any challenge in getting more people who have come from SLA into the ASIS membership engaged in the governance of the association, both at the board level, but as Hildy said, at the levels of all the committees, at the leaderships of the special interest groups and chapters and so forth. Believe me, we are always eager to engage more people as volunteers in the association.
I see in the hosted panelist chat that it looks like IFLA dues are still in the budget, but we will need to look to see if it is current or has been paid or when it is due. Okay, what does ASIS currently offer or do to support new information professionals? This is an area of support I'd like to see expanded for the SLA community.
So I'll mention that we are in the process of developing our 25 to 28 strategic plan. It is drafted. It's in the hands of our strategic planning task force for final edits right now, and it's then going to go out to both our membership, and I will be sending Hildy an email shortly saying, who do you want at SLA to review our strategic plan? I actually had a conversation with the SLA fellows in Pittsburgh about how that would be one group that would be great to have giving us input on that, but I'll leave it to Hildy to figure out more. But in that strategic plan, there is specifically activities around developing support for early career members of ASIS. And we are basing much of what we want to do there on a survey that we did of those members to say, what do you need from us? What more can we do to be supportive of you? So I'm not sure I can answer that question without going out with a survey to SLA early career members and saying, what can we do to support you? Because I just don't know enough about what your members would need at this point that we could get off the ground in the next couple of years, but we will do that. I think once we have completed the merger, there will be a lot of surveying going on to figure out how we can make sure that we're meeting the needs of everybody along the way. So that will certainly be part of our strategic activities going forward. I just don't know exactly what you all want yet. So once I know that, we'll figure out a way to give it to you.
I'll just chirp in real quick. Hi, everyone. I'm the president-elect for ASIS, and one of the responsibilities of that position is to lead the strategic planning process every few years. And so I've been in the thick of that. And I do recall when we were looking at the needs of early career professionals, things that came forward were more training in moving toward administrative positions, and grant writing and finding funding for activities, more support for that. Sorry, I'm missing one. I had three in my head a minute ago, but those kinds of things came forward, and I think that they would be applicable across the organizations.
Yeah.
Okay, can there be subchapters within chapters?
Yeah, so the way our chapter structure works is we have regional chapters. Those are the big ones that cover Europe and South Asia and Asia and so forth. Then there are local chapters within that. The locality can be, as large as a country, as small as a city. I've talked to the folks that are in the DMV region of SLA about the fact that they definitely want to keep their energy going. As a local DMV or myself, I am strongly in favor of that. So again, we're going to work with whatever groups want to continue to exist and make sure that we can figure out a way to make that happen. How we resource them and particularly fund them, we'll have to figure out. But in terms of that opportunity, it certainly exists. If you want more information on that on our website, if you go to membership, then to chapters, there's some chapter leadership resources and special interest group resources. And our manuals for both of those things are in there. And that lays out in chapter and verse how we structure things, how we fund things, and all of that, if you want more detailed, granular information on that.
I want to comment on a couple of questions that have been replied to. There does not seem to be a SIG where an SLA community might fit, what is needed to establish another SIG? And Emma, thank you for putting in a link to the document for establishing a SIG. And then could you please provide links to both either website with access to the feedback forms here, and Julie sent the feedback form. So.
And I'll just quickly mention that if there are existing communities within SLA that want to become SIGs, we don't need to go through all the hoops and ladders and whatnot to make that happen. I think we'll find a way to streamline that process. That's really designed for nascent groups that have not had an interest group anywhere before that want to get started. So we'll find a way to fast track that for groups that really want to continue to be groups.
May have covered this question, but have there been discussions about how the merger can help bridge the academic practitioner divide? I know this issue is often pronounced in LIS. Note that I have not yet had time to review the framework document.
I think we've pretty much covered that with Ian and Abebe's responses. We do recognize we're probably not going to see a lot of those conversations happening at the annual meetings right off the bat, because I do think the two communities will generally be separate for those. But I think at the special interest group and chapter level, that's where those integrations are really going to start happening, and those conversations are going to happen, and it's going to be organic, and we're going to have to see where we are in 3 months and 6 months, and are there ways that we can prompt more conversation and I think those of us that are really invested and engaged need to help drive those conversations. So we can't just expect it, for our members to, we build it and they will come. We have to actually make some effort to drive those conversations. But I'm confident that if we make the effort, that will happen.
There's a quote from a friend a long time ago, people don't do business with business. They do business with people. So it's about doing that integration and the networking and the connections that we make. Okay, what will happen to the boards of SLA communities in merging with ASIS equivalents?
I think that's a case-by-case conversation that we should have. I think we'll take each one individually. As I said, if there's an existing SLA component that wants to come over to ASIS that doesn't already exist, then we would, that could move over in whole. Our election process for the SIGs and chapters tends to take place around about September for the next year's leadership. So depending on where we are in, August 18th, we could definitely engage. I mean, I'm going to start treating SLA members as ASIS members on August 19th, my birthday, by the way, on August 19th, assuming that the votes on both sides are yes, even though it'll take time for the actual paperwork to get through the systems. But, on August 19th, we can start that integration. And so at that point, if not sooner, everybody that's an SLA member will be in our ASIS database and getting emails and be able to engage and interact with those activities. So I see no reason why if there are natural integrations between an existing SLA community and an ASIS community, that we can't make that happen quickly and either have co-leadership for a year or bring new people into new leadership roles. We'll again, case by case basis, I think some of these are going to have to be handled one by one, and whatever works best for the relative groups will make work.
Can I just jump in? So for SLA members, if you recall, we have 3 community liaisons from the board of directors: Christine Pelosi, James Manesco, and Emma Moore. So if you have very specific community needs and want to make sure that we know of all of them, I would suggest approaching one of them. There'll be another, I believe, Christine, another community town hall that can also be discussed there. So thanks.
And I'll just say yes, we don't know, we haven't scheduled it yet, but yes, a town hall for SLA units will be coming.
Related to the question about the A&E communities for excuse me, free monthly webinars. Some communities have traditionally held a lot of free webinars, while others have used webinars as a method of fundraising. Are there any concerns about either version for your paid existing going?
So our policy as a general rule is that non-members have to pay for access to content provided by ASIS. And we are pretty vehement about that. However, if there's an existing traditional something that's being done by free that's co-hosted by another organization, I don't want to upset that apple cart. So I think we would keep going forward with that. Our preference, of course, is that non-members pay something. And we'll often see events happening at ASIS that are $5 for a non-member, just so that we're creating a difference between being a member and not being a member. And that's quite important to us. And there's a whole, again, if you go to those documents about SIGs and chapters, there's a whole explanation of who gets what money for what kind of event, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We really try to give as much money back as we can to the groups that are hosting the events, minus a modest administrative fee, but it's really quite tiny. So we want to help you all grow your existing funds, and I could do a whole other webinar on how that works. And that was another question that came up quite a lot in Pittsburgh, but we do allow component groups to earn money and carry that money forward. Our only requirement is that whatever money you earn in 1 year is spent within 5 years. And we keep close track of what year you earn money and by what point you spend it, just so that we're actually using money that is being raised and earned to produce more programming and more content.
Someone who started as a student member of both organizations, have you thought about how to deal with schools that have student chapters with both organizations?
So we haven't addressed this directly. ASIS, frankly, one of our weak areas is our student chapters. We have very little control over those. I don't want to say control because we don't control them, but there are student chapters that exist that we honestly don't know about. There are a lot of student chapters where people think that they're a member of the student chapter and therefore a member of ASIS, but they've never actually become a member of ASIS. So there's a lot of problems in our student chapters, I'll just say, and we're working on trying to get more structure around that. But it would be a tremendous benefit to ASIS to bring on SLA student chapters that have, more focus and structure than what we've seen in our student chapters. So I think, again, case by case basis, we will go looking at those institutions, and our only requirement for a student chapter, frankly, is that there be somebody on faculty that is our point of contact over time, because obviously students come and students go. So yeah, we'll integrate those. I think, in the instances where there are two student groups at one institution, I'm guessing they're already working pretty closely together anyway. And so we'll figure out the best way to integrate those. But I think those will be pretty manageable and a real benefit to ASIS student members to have that level of engagement.
As I just quick jump in, as somebody who is actually from an institution that has two strong student chapters of both organizations, I do like Lydia said, this is something that ASIS can benefit from. But I will also say, chances are this is also something that's going to have to be handled at the local level. I know at Simmons we're going to have to talk to the student groups. We're going to have to talk to the faculty advisors of those groups and figure out those next steps locally, as well as what's happening at the larger level. So there's going to, just like with everything else we're talking about here, there's going to be a few steps that are going to be involved with it, and it's going to happen at different levels. But as Lydia has said, and I think as we've all been saying, I see this benefiting both groups quite a bit. And especially at, like I said, at a place like Simmons, where we have very strong student representations in both groups. And we actually have, as Lydia pointed out, we also have an umbrella organization that oversees all of the student groups, so that they will be involved with that as well.
Emma has her hand up.
Yep, and I also want to shout out Christine and James and Dan on the SLA side, who've been going through the community vitality working group work of the last few years, and there are groups, chapters, probably student chapters, that are inactive. That we've classified as inactive, but that we have that documentation, and I think one of the opportunities could be thinking as a Rutgers alum, seeing what the interest is at Rutgers and other places with the new organization to revive these chapters or create new local groups.
Excuse me. I noticed on your slide for member type distribution that the majority of ASIS members are from academia. Do you attract any members from corporate, specifically from pharmaceutical and biotech companies?
We have some. I wouldn't say we have a critical mass of them. We do have a very strong SIG Health. So that group encompasses both people that are working in healthcare and pharma, and particularly people that are doing research in health IT, health information management. So I would say that not a lot. I mean, again, there are two different cultures coming together in this merger. So ASIS very much is a research focused, and most of that research is happening in academia organization, whereas SLA is a much more practice and industry corporate focused organization. So they're going to be different groups coming together. We recognize that there's going to be a little bit of a potential, need to manage and massage the cultures merging together. But as I think others have mentioned, that's one of the things that's going to make this very rich. So just because a group doesn't currently exist in ASIS, the fact that it would be coming into ASIS gives us a lot of opportunity, I think, to develop new programs and services for those communities. So we're excited about that.
For SLA members who paid for 3-year membership, will those roll over to ASIS membership? Since the SLA membership is higher cost, could there be an option for the overage dollars going to donation to scholarship fund if possible.
So that's the first time I've heard that idea come about. We had that question come up in terms of the Q&A that was submitted online. And my response was, but as it relates to the difference between the cost of a 3-year membership in ASIS and the cost of a 3-year membership in SLA, whatever the term of your membership in SLA is, it would transfer to ASIS. So if you have a 3-year membership expiring in 2027, let's say, in SLA, your expiration date would become the same in ASIS. We're not really in a position to give money back. You know, what's going to end up happening here is the scholarship fund will move to ASIS, but that's really all the funds that are transferring over. There is nothing else to transfer over. So, you know, ASIS isn't in a position where we could give money to anybody for that. However, what I have said in that other document is anyone that you know, if you pay for a 3-year membership in SLA, which is, I think, $60 more than a 3-year membership in ASIS, we'll credit that $60 to your next membership in ASIS. So when you come to renew, just remind us that you did that, and we can credit that to you.
And unbeknownst to everybody on this call, I've been thinking about fundraisers to boost the value of the total of the scholarship fund. So what is the potential to better align the qualifications of memberships between SLA and ASIST, aligning student members and new professionals or early career? I'm not sure I really understand your question.
Okay, so here, I think what they're asking is, so right now, in order to qualify to be a student member, our requirement is that you have to be a full-time student, right? And this is another thing that came up in the written Q&As. And for an early career, it's the first 2 years postgraduate. I don't think we're going to change early career. That sort of makes sense to me that your early career is your first 2 years postgraduate, but I'd be willing to entertain alternate suggestions. For the student one, what I said in the document that we created, I don't think that's been shared out yet, is that we could adjust our requirement that it be in pursuit of a degree. So not necessarily full-time, but in pursuit of a degree. What we have found is, you know, and in the association world, there's always somebody that tries to game the system. And so somebody that's taking one art class submits a student ID and saying that I'm a student, and they want a student membership when they've been a practicing professional for many years. So that, you know, we don't want that kind of a situation. But as long as you're a student enrolled in a degree program and you're in pursuit of a degree, if you're doing it part-time while you're working, that qualifies you as a student. So that's, we can certainly make that adjustment. I'd welcome suggestions for how we could fix early career to make it fit better. Right now, it's your first 2 years in a career, and that includes sort of career transition. So if somebody goes back to school to get a degree and then starts over again in a new career, that first 2 years applies as early career. So we can figure that out. We'll look at that.
Will ASIST make available a detailed economic cost analysis before the voting occurs?
So in the Q&A document, I did, in the ASIST response to the Q&As, I did address the fact that we have done a detailed analysis that's been shared with the board, and it's part of our budget going forward. The expected new revenue that would come to ASIS as a result of SLA membership and our cost. I mean, I'll say very briefly that, you know, recognizing that SLA is in financial difficulty, it's a reasonable question for ASIS members to say, well, if we take on an organization that's in financial difficulty, will that not put us into financial difficulty as well? However, SLA has been supporting an entire management structure with its existing financial base, whereas ASIS already has an entire management structure. And the incremental cost of bringing on 1,200 members from SLA and the existing programming in SLA is not anywhere close, for ASIS, is not anywhere close to what SLA is currently spending on that. So we can absorb the new members and the programming that will come from supporting SLA into our budget at a much smaller cost than what SLA is currently experiencing. So at minimum, it'll be a break even for us. And if we can continue to offer the SLA annual conference and a robust exhibitor and sponsor program at that, then there's potential revenue opportunities for ASIS in this as well. There will be a growth period for that. We recognize that we'll do well to break even on this transition in the next 12 months. And the board has accepted that and has agreed to some investments that we may need to make. We haven't had to make them yet, but we may need to make going forward to make this truly successful. But ASIS is in the fortunate financial situation that we have a good reserve balance, and we have a board that recognizes that investing in the organization to grow it and make it stronger and better is worth doing. And so we may use some of those reserves in the next year to support this. But in the grand scheme of things, this should be a net gain for ASIS financially over time, not immediately, but over time.
Okay, your SIGs are very broad. SLA communities are specific. We think SLA business and finance is different from ASIS. SIG for business seems to be management, not the same thing.
And this is why I say we're going to look at these on a case-by-case basis and figure out what works best. If business and finance wants to come over as its own SIG because they don't see a natural home for themselves, we can make that work. It may be that in 3 or 4 years, after some conversation between the two SIGs, that again we see there's enough commonality that we can bring them together. I mean, we've made an effort in the last couple of years to consolidate some of our SIGs because both financially and in terms of human capital, there just aren't enough volunteers in the world to support some of these things. And I know that some of the communities in SLA have struggled for volunteer leadership over time, as do some of the ones in ASIS. So if we can find groups that make sense to put together, it works better for everybody to put them together. But if that doesn't make sense, then we won't force it, and let's let them be separate for the time being and see what happens over time.
Since researchers and practitioners need each other, why are there 2 separate conferences? May that be reconsidered?
So, there was another question on this, I think, that was from an anonymous participant, so I didn't take it. But I think it's important to sort of reiterate that for a variety of reasons, we want to maintain 2 conferences for a while. If we were to put the 2 conferences together, we'd want to have separate. The ASIS conference is sacrosanct, and there are things that we would not be willing to give up at that meeting. So we want to continue to have 2.5 full days of peer-reviewed papers, panels, and posters, and all that content that we do. If we were to add in a couple more tracks on practice issues, we would expand the size and the scope of our meeting by a couple of days, probably. So then we've got members who would be coming in for 5 or 6 days, and staff that are working for 10 days straight. It's a lot. And so it just, at least right off the bat, seems like more than we want to take on. There will be, discounts for members to attend one meeting. We could even figure out maybe if there's discounts to attend. If you decide to attend both meetings, you get a deeper discount than if you just attend one. We can play with that. But as I said, also, SLA has a very strong relationship with its industry partners. It has a very robust sponsor and exhibitor program. ASIS does not have that as much. And so we don't want to lose that by forcing the 2 communities together. We want to, make sure we're making the most of both of the opportunities. So, for 2 to 3, 4 years, I don't know how long, we're going to keep them separate. If it makes sense over time to bring them together because there's a demand from the membership that says we'd rather meet together than apart, then we'll figure out a way to make that work. But for the short run, this financially and human resource wise makes the most sense.
Heather, in the interest of time, is there something that's vastly different in the questions that maybe we could end with in that way? I know there's a lot, and if there are unanswered questions, we will try and answer them. I know Christine has already asked for all the questions from the Q&A. And we'll make sure ASIS gets the same information.
Can I jump in and sort of tag on to that last answer I just gave, because I see David has popped in the same question again. The SLA version of the conference will continue to be in the US for the foreseeable future. Our upcoming meeting, the ASIS upcoming meeting, is in Crystal City, Virginia. Hope that some SLA members come to that. We're doing a special $200 one-day rate for anyone that's in the region and wants to just pop in and see what it's all about. And all SLA members get the ASIS member rate to attend that conference, as well as our IDEA Institute. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I'll get you a discount code for that. And you can use that benefit now. Our 2026 ASIS annual conference is in Bangkok. So this is another reason why, combining the two meetings together could be a little challenging, particularly for people coming from SLA, is that our meeting pattern is 1 year in the US, 1 year in Canada, 1 year in Europe, and then alternating every 3 years to Asia. So we move back and forth. So we are hoping to be in Canada in 27, but our meetings, go outside of the United States 2 out of every 3 years. So recognizing that the traditional SLA conference has usually been in the US, we don't want to upset that apple cart either and make people feel like they have to go abroad to attend an annual conference. So it's another reason to keep two meetings for now.
Okay, so I found one that is vastly different. Regarding the question about the board elections, the framework document also mentions non-voting members of the ASIS board designated from SLA post-merger and pre-next ASIS election. Please also comment on the next SLA slate and election, including purpose and timing.
That's not a me question, that's a you guys question.
Okay, so Lydia has indicated that SLA will have 2 members coming from SLA who will sit in on the ASIS board meetings. They'll be non-voting, and this speaks to a bylaws issue for right now. And the next SLA slate will be received by the board at our July 17th meeting. And the SLA board going forward is the transition team. So those of you who are on the slate, you're not getting off easy and just working for a few months. We're going to be actively working on the transition and the merging of the 2 organizations and making all of that work. I hope that helps there.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. I think we are at 1 o'clock. Again, we will try and answer as many of the unanswered questions as possible. And then also if our ASIS board members and other leadership on this call can also help with some of that as well. I'm sure there are next answers that might be there. So we'll be starting to work together even just with a potential merger. So I want to thank everybody for coming. Lydia, thank you very much for all of your insights. And also ASIS board members, thank you very much. And SLA board members, thank you very much. So I hope everybody has a great rest of your day or evening, depending on your time zone. And we will be having more. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks, everyone. It's very exciting.
Yeah, we answered 46 and we still have 25 questions open. So it's a little bit rapid fire there. All right. Thanks, everyone from ASIS for joining and chiming in. I think it was really useful.
Our pleasure. Pleasure.
All right, take care.
Okay,
all right,
take
enjoy
care.
the
Bye.
rest of your vacation, Ian.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.